flooding kills several soldiers.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the soldiers, families, and friends
as the search continues for others. Donald Trump is under attack for his foreign policy. We'll talk to one Muslim immigrant who's on his side. Officer honored.
You're my superhero.
A policeman relives the moment he saved a little girl's life. And Jubilee of Mercy, what the Pope is telling priests from around the world. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, June 3rd, 2016. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren Ashburn. The U.S. Army searches tonight for 4 soldiers who disappeared after their truck overturned in rising floodwaters. 5 soldiers died. It happened in Fort Hood, Texas. An Army commander calls it a tragic accident, and Wyatt Goolsby joins us with more. Wyatt?
Yeah, Lauren, the Army says 3 of the soldiers in that truck were pulled out of the floodwaters alive. They should be released from the hospital tonight, but this is a tough day for the friends and families of the soldiers who died.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the soldiers, families, and friends of 3rd Battalion, 16th Field Artillery.
Major General John Uberde says he and other high-ranking Army members at Fort Hood are thankful for the outpouring of support from across the country. Uberde says the accident happened Thursday when 12 soldiers were returning from training in a military vehicle when it overturned while crossing a creek on base.
It's a situation where the rain had come, the water was rising quickly, and we were in the process of at the moment of the event, of closing the roads.
The 3 soldiers rescued were pulled to safety from the rising waters by other soldiers in a nearby vehicle.
Our priority has been, since the first report of this incident, and continues to be, the search for our 4 missing teammates.
The accident comes as heavy rain pummels much of Texas. Parts of the state remain under flood watches and warnings. Texas Governor Greg Abbott urges people to stay away from high water.
Please, if you do not have to be out on the road, do not go driving out on the road. Understand, water can look innocent, it can look harmless, but you can drive into it and be completely swept away.
Abbott says his state stands ready to help the Fort Hood Army base if they need it. The area where the Army vehicle overturned, Owl Creek, is about 70 miles north of Austin, and it's an area prone to flash floods. Lauren?
Wyatt, is it unusual that these soldiers would be driving in high water?
No, actually, these soldiers at Fort Hood regularly contend with high water situations like flash floods. The Army says at the time these soldiers were doing what they were supposed to be doing. In other words, they were not at fault for the situation. They say it's just that the flash floods came so quickly, the base couldn't get the warning out in time.
Wyatt Goolsby, thank you very much. The Navy is investigating the cause of a Blue Angels jet crash. Yesterday's accident in Tennessee killed the pilot, Marine Captain Jeff Cuss. Witnesses say his plane was flying low when it went down.
That particular Blue Angel I saw, he was just doing some barrel rolls, it looked like, in the air, and he was flying awful low, I thought, and he kind of got down below the tree line over there, and it looked like he was like on his belly going down, and that was the end of it.
The Blue Angels plan to take part in the Great Tennessee Air Show, but their performance has been canceled. The pilot of a Thunderbird jet that crashed in Colorado is not seriously injured. Major Alex Turner ejected safely not long after flying over President Obama and cadets for the Air Force Academy graduation. A helicopter, which happened to be on President Obama's motorcade, rescued the pilot. The president stopped to thank both pilots for their service. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. In California, police tried to block anti-Donald Trump protesters from attacking Trump supporters, but failed. Protesters in San Jose are accused of punching and throwing eggs at Trump supporters, hitting at least a dozen people. Protesters also broke car windows and set Trump campaign hats on fire. 4 people were arrested. House Speaker Paul Ryan defends his decision to endorse Donald Trump. He says his goal is to keep progressive Democrats from winning another term in the White House.
I had people on both sides of it. I had friends wishing I wouldn't support him. I had people wishing I would. I really didn't feel any pressure other than my goal is to make sure that we're unified so that we're at full strength in the fall so that we can actually win the election.
Republicans in the Senate also unify around Trump, the candidate, but not all of his policies. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he can't support Trump's proposed ban on Muslims.
Most Muslim Americans are patriotic. There's great sources for potential radicals inside our country, and if you banned all Muslims from coming into the United States, the King of Jordan, who's a great ally of ours, wouldn't be able to come to the United States. That's a bad idea and should not be pursued.
Kamal Nawash is a lawyer, a Muslim American immigrant, and a Trump supporter. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
It would seem to some people to be surprising that you, as a Muslim immigrant, would back Donald Trump, who on December 7th said he's calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representative can figure out what was going on. And that was after the San Bernardino terrorist attack.
Yeah, first of all, when you choose a candidate, you choose a candidate who's the best among the available candidates. And the available candidates is him and Hillary. And between the two, I think he's the most reasonable.
But Hillary isn't banning Muslims.
Sure, but she said we need to vet them more, and that's basically saying the same thing. All the candidates have said it in a more diplomatic way. All Donald Trump said, and incidentally, I don't support that statement. I do not support that, but there is no candidate or no voter like me is ever presented with a candidate that's 100% to your liking. That's your perfect. So he said that statement. Is it a good statement? No. Does it probably cause hostility toward Muslims? Probably does. Do I prefer that he didn't say it? Yes, I do. But he said it, and then after, and I think part of it, he was responding to people's emotions after the terrorist attack. People were angry, and you know, there were talk of thousands of immigrants, refugees coming here, and all he was saying is, let's figure out who's coming here.
Okay, at dinner time, when you're sitting around with your family, are you in the minority on this?
No, I think that I'm a Palestinian American, and the number of Palestinian Americans who are supporting him is increasing by the hour, especially after the last debate between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, where Bernie Sanders said we need to have respect for the Palestinians and we need to treat them with respect, and Hillary just took a 100% pro-Israel support. So a lot of people who care about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict are going toward Trump. In hordes, basically.
One other thing that that you have done, you've served on the Muslim Christian Coalition to help the Christian persecution.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, obviously, now the first church that's ever been established is in the Middle East. It's in Palestine, it's in Syria, it's in Lebanon, it's in Iraq, and they've thrived for thousands of years. But in the last 20, 30 years, we've seen the Christian community being decimated. And I think it's a direct result of the wars. We have to be more reasonable and more gradual in our approaches, and Donald Trump is doing that.
Kamal Nawash, Muslim immigrant, lawyer, thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
Prosecutors convicted 3 Minnesota men with conspiracy to commit murder overseas. They plotted to go to Syria to join ISIS. The men were part of a group of friends in a Somali community. The FBI says about a dozen young men and women left Minnesota to join militants in Syria in recent years. Iran's top leader says his country will not cooperate with the U.S. in the fight against ISIS. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says cooperation with America goes, quote, against the independence of Iran and would be a big mistake. The U.S. reached a nuclear deal with Iran earlier this year. And the Vatican says human trafficking is a crime against humanity. At a Vatican summit, prosecutors and judges pledged to crack down. Pope Francis has made combating trafficking a priority of his pontificate. The Seine River is flowing over the banks of Paris. The president issues a disaster declaration there in light of that flooding. One journalist says he's lived in the area for 30 years and has never seen the water this high.
And what people forget now is, you know, this happens in winter. I mean, when the snows melt and there's a lot of rain and stuff. I mean, this is June. I mean, one night we're sitting on deck, you know, just having wine, and it's perfectly normal, expecting the little ducks to float by in the morning, you know, calmly. And the next morning we wake up and it's like Noah's Ark.
The Louvre Museum closed today in Paris. Workers are moving artifacts in the lower level to higher floors. The Louvre's most famous painting, the Mona Lisa, is safe on an upper floor, but an estimated 250,000 pieces are in flood risk areas like the basement. The Orsay Museum closed, bracing for flooding as well. A dramatic security breach in an Ohio courtroom, and it was all caught on camera. The man who lunged over the desk is actually the victim's father. He attacked the sex offender convicted of killing his daughter and 2 other people. The convict, Michael Madison, was sentenced to death. And tonight, an Oklahoma police officer is reunited with a little girl whose life he saved.
He's my superhero.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. That is so sweet.
Why do you say that?
Because he saved me and he saved the day.
Wow.
David Huff hasn't seen Zoe Keating in 3 years.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The day they met was captured by surveillance cameras in this Oklahoma grocery store. A man named Sammy Wallace had snatched 2-year-old Zoe from her mom's shopping cart.
I started screaming, "Somebody please help, this man has my baby."
This is 911, how can I help you?
We need a police here immediately.
There's someone with a knife holding a little girl hostage.
Within minutes, Midwest City police officers David Huff and Darrell Miller calmly walked into this frantic scene.
He was in this manic state where he was basically just blurting out statements.
Huff and Miller were trained hostage negotiators. The next 34 minutes and saving Zoe would be the ultimate test.
I said, "Sammy, look." I was like, "She's not scared of you. She's not even crying."
But then Wallace threatens to kill Zoe and starts counting down from 60.
The only way I know that Zoe's not going to be in danger when the shot's fired is if the barrel of my gun is touching his head. He got down to 5, and I ended up only had to take 1 large step and had to do it.
Wallace collapses, but watch Huff's reaction.
I was angry that he made me do it. And at that point, I thought that Zoe had already been cut or stabbed and that I waited too long. They finally came around and said, "She don't have a scratch on her." And that was the best part.
You're my superhero.
You are the sweetest thing.
David Huff is proof not every superhero wears a cape. Coming up, we head to Rome to talk to Bishop Robert Barron about the Jubilee of Mercy for priests. Pope Francis's June prayer intentions, how he wants us to help others. Today, on the solemnity of the most sacred heart of Jesus, Pope Francis concludes the Jubilee for priests in Rome with a Mass. The Jubilee was a 3-day event that gave priests the chance for prayer, adoration, and confession. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. During today's homily, Pope Francis tells priests to ask themselves, where is my heart directed? Francis says a priest should focus first on God, not plans and projects. Bishop Robert Barron is the founder of Word on Fire Catholic Ministries and an auxiliary bishop of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's great to be on with you.
Well, you're in Rome for the Jubilee of Priests. Tell me how the Pope is encouraging priests to receive and show mercy.
Well, that's his major theme, isn't it, of his whole papacy, and I think he sees priests as the prime vehicles of this offer of the divine mercy. He's been wonderful during these days, spending all this time with priests in 3 different locations in Rome. The day before, that's why I'm here, a group of us spoke to the individual language groups. And then today we had this wonderful Mass with the Holy Father, and I think it's been enormously inspiring. And he sees priests, I think, as the ones who will carry the divine mercy into the world most powerfully. And so he's spending a lot of time with us.
How are you supposed to bring that message of mercy back to your parishes? What specifically are you supposed to do?
Well, I think he's very big on the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. So we preach it, of course. That's part of our prophetic role. But I think, too, we're supposed to enact the works of mercy and encourage our people to do so. Mercy looks like something. It's not just an abstraction. We're not just for, peace and justice and mercy in the abstract. It looks like these 14 basic moves, the spiritual and corporal works. And I hear the Pope emphasizing that all the time. And he wants priests by their very presence. He spoke today about their pierced hearts. So the merciful heart is the heart that feels the suffering of the poor. So I think we bring that, and we bring the corporal and spiritual works of mercy.
Pope Francis had said something that I loved. This is the quote. "This I ask you, be shepherds with the odor of the sheep. Make it real as shepherds among your flock, fishers of men." I'm always curious about priests having to have the odor of sheep. What does that mean?
It just means we're close to our people. We're not hovering above them. We're not just thundering denunciations from above, but we're with them. And we feel their pain, and we're in their suffering with them. You know, I go back to my spiritual mentor, Cardinal Francis George, who many years ago, long before Pope Francis, told the students at Mundelein Seminary, where I was rector, he said, it's not enough just to share the truth with your people. But once you share with them, you have to walk with them and help them carry it. And I hear that all the time now from Pope Francis. That's having the smell of the sheep.
Bishop Robert Barron is the founder of Word on Fire Catholic Ministry. Thank you so much for joining us.
God bless you. Thanks.
Praise for Pope Francis for promoting life. Father Scott Borgman of the Pontifical Academy for Life credits him for acting as an example by reaching out to the poor, the disabled, and the aged.
I think as we look around us, there's much we can do, and seeing Pope Francis going and visiting the prisoners, going to old age homes, going to institutions which are taking care of handicapped children, for example. I mean, we have too many images to be able to talk about all of them here, but he's been a great example.
Pope Francis invites everyone to help marginalized members of society. His prayer intention for June is human solidarity, as shown in this Vatican video.
Me acompañas en mi petición para que los ancianos, marginados y las personas solitarias encuentren incluso en las grandes ciudades oportunidades de encuentro y solidaridad.
The Pope releases a new prayer intention every month. Up next, actress Sam Sorbo on the value of homeschooling. She shares her personal experience. And 10,000 people head to Peru, what Catholicism, local beliefs, and a glacier have in common. A new award for our foundress, Mother Angelica. The Catholic Academy of Communication Professionals posthumously honored her with its President's Medallion. The award was presented during the annual Gabriel Awards. Mother Angelica died on Easter Sunday. She started the largest religious media network in the world. And that's us. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Orthodox Christians call for unity ahead of the first ever meeting of the faith's 14 independent churches. They're meeting in Crete later this month, part of an effort to heal a 1,000-year rift with Roman Catholics. Thousands of Peruvian pilgrims gather for the annual Snow Star Festival. Dancers in multi-layered skirts and musicians with drums and flutes perform non-stop over 3 days. It's held every year shortly before the Feast of Corpus Christi, and this celebration mixes Roman Catholic and indigenous beliefs. The head of the Vatican Internet Service calls Francis the digital pope, but not for his technological prowess.
He's not a technological pope. He don't know the technology. But he's a man that can feel, understand the culture, the people.
Monsignor Lucio Adrian Ruiz also says the Pope is on pretty much the same wavelength as the rest of humanity. The National Home Education Research Institute reports 2.3 million U.S. students are homeschooled. Families have different reasons for homeschooling, including customized curriculum and family values. Actress Sam Sorbo is the author of the new book, They're Your Kids, an inspirational journey from self-doubter to homeschool advocate. Sam, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I could never homeschool, ever. I don't have the patience. I can't even imagine it. And you must hear this all the time.
All the time.
all the time.
Yeah.
Why is it that many women think they can't homeschool?
Well, we're conditioned to believe that school is relegated and it belongs in the institution. But I turn that around and I say, I love my kids and they don't belong in the institution. I was trained to go to school, to get a degree, to get a job, and then maybe to get married and have kids, right? It's the whole feminist thing. And what I realized is that's my problem. That's my thinking. But the fact is, when you take your kids, I took my kids out of the system and I started to see the system from the outside. And I realized I was filled with self-doubt. I have parents say I can't. I don't know how.
I don't know. That's exactly what I said. But did you take them out because something happened?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my son was 5 months in, had done a book report every month, had turned it in. I never got anything back. Now, mind you, I was in the classroom a lot. I mean, I hung out. And
Sure.
And I taught art in the classroom. I took the kid, I graded papers for the teacher and stuff like that. And so one day I just said to the teacher, so how are Braden's book reports? Because never got anything back. She said, oh, not good. And
at which point you think, why hasn't she been communicating with me all the time?
And then I started doing book reports with him every day, and I went, this is kind of like homeschooling.
My cousin has 3 children under 4, homeschooled. She was homeschooled. What is your advice to a woman who is considering going the route that you went?
Go right online and check into all of the homeschool curriculum, all the homeschool groups that you have in your area, and ask people for advice. Homeschoolers are so embracing. We feel like we've discovered this tremendous secret, this freedom, and also the ability to have such a strong bond with our children, which the bond is actually kind of destroyed by the schools. The schools form a wedge between the child and the parent, public schools particularly. And you talked about faith. You know, they didn't actually take religion out of schools. They simply replaced Judeo-Christianity with a secular, atheistic faith. And so they are literally teaching our kids evolution, which is still a theory. And I'm sorry, it's survival of the fittest. And then they wonder why the children get violent. Well, it's survival of the fittest, baby. That's what we're teaching them. So I took my kids out because I found out that I was the substitute teacher and I was basically homeschooling with all the homework that they sent home. And then I discovered sort of the religious aspects. So there are a lot of people who homeschool just from the religious point of view, and I don't disagree with that either.
Thank you so much, Sam Sorbo, author of the new book, They're Your Kids, an inspirational journey from self-doubter to homeschool advocate.
And you can do it.
For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Lauren Ashburn. We leave you tonight with more images of today's Mass at the Vatican. Pope Francis delivered the homily in St. Peter's Square as part of a special Jubilee of Mercy for priests. Good night, God bless, enjoy your weekend.